What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk to you about Lucid. I want to go over some of the data points, what really moved it, and what my true thoughts on Lucid is currently. Before we get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid is down 0.91%, 1846 the low, 1905 the high, and 7.6 million shares being traded, 8.7 is the average. So the market was hot like crazy today, and that was because of CPI. So CPI month over month came in at 0.3, forecast of 0.4, but it does get better than that, because if we kind of look at the true data, energy did go up 1.5, meaning the other basket items truly did go down significantly. So at the end of the day, whether you look at the data more finite or even on a broader scope, things were on point. And so even aside from that, Michigan consumer sentiment, S&P Global put out composite manufacturing and services, all of that came in better than anticipated. So the market was really moving higher. Regrettably, because of Tesla's earnings, that really did suppress Lucid quite a lot. And then over and above that, we did have this data that did come out. So new car prices hit record highs. So new car prices reached a record of 50,080 in September, driven by a rush on electric vehicles, of course, with that 7,500 tax credit. But it does say right here, without the incentives, prices may fall below 50,000 later this year. So at the end of the day, in case you haven't caught on, Lucid's vehicles are much more than 50,000. So I think there's just been a lot of data that's been coming out to signal that things are not doing that great coming from a consumer standpoint, despite a lot of the data that's been coming out. So I feel like Lucid is kind of stuck. And even aside from that, there really hasn't been all that much in news from Lucid. So they haven't put out any news. Social media seems to be their thing, and I'm not really sure exactly why they post all this stuff on social media but don't do really any PR. This, to me, isn't really that big of a deal. And again, it begs the question on how much they've actually been paid just to take pictures, let alone even put them at all these locations in New York. So at the end of the day, I'm not that big of a fan of that, but I've already been kind of vocal and explained that to you. There was this that did come out. And so it looks like special delivery, 𝗪𝗓𝗧 co-founder and CEO. This individual just picked up their own gravity. And so I think that's good, right? One thing that has really bothered me about Lucid is that 𝗪𝗓𝗧, I get that they're kind of the underdog in comparison to Uber and also Lucid, but they're doing the majority of PRs. They put out more Lucid stuff than Lucid's ever mentioned with 𝗪𝗓𝗧. So it's really unfortunate how this does appear, and this started to have me think. And so I have numerous YouTube channels. I actually made a couple more recently, a couple that have definitely grown quite a lot, but one of them is just covering kind of meme stocks, most recently Beyond Meat. So in case you guys haven't realized, that stock went up like crazy. Since then it's kind of pulled back, but it really started to have me think about how stocks are truly interpreted by investors. And so especially even Open Door, I cover that one on another YouTube channel, and that one was called a cult. So I guess there's between meme stocks, there's cult, there's just a pure momentum play, there's just whatever, like a meme, and a lot of different mentalities, of course. And so it had me kind of think, what is Lucid? Definitely Lucid isn't a momentum play, because it definitely isn't. Like over the last little bit, anyone saying that this is a momentum play definitely doesn't understand what Lucid's all about. But I also don't think that it's a meme, because yeah, there's, I don't know, maybe that's why, maybe it truly is a meme and nothing more than that. This is why shorts have kind of stuck around, and they're not really kind of moving, right? Like for the most of 2025, short interest has been above or even close to about 28 and above. It's crazy, but it also made me think, is Lucid a cult? I get it. I argue with a lot of people, and I think just a lot of Lucid investors only want to hear positives, and that's it. And that's why I've kind of argued and went back and forth, especially back in 2023. For those of you that were kind of investing back then, I was one of the first ones that said, hey, you know what? Like this doesn't add up. There clearly is an issue, and turns out there was a massive demand issue and also a lot of kind of supply chain issues. Just people hated me and called me out for even bringing that up. So a lot of investors just don't want to hear any negatives. And even right now, when I bring up, clearly, you can kind of tell, I'm sure my tone hasn't been that great on Lucid. And of course, people don't want to hear that. People don't want to hear the truth. They want to be told that things are going to be all right and have rainbows and sunshine shoved up your asses. No offense. And my apologies on the French. But to be honest, that's it. That's what people and a lot of YouTubers do. They don't really care about the stocks. They just pump. And that's regrettably, I think, where I am different from a lot of YouTubers. I like to be honest. So I think Lucid is struggling massively. And just the fact that, like, it honestly, even covering it for the last 5 years, I can tell you that they still don't know who their target audience is. They don't know how to market. A lot of the data, and I think Lucid's been very lucky that the market has been expanding for the most of them kind of doing their production, with the exception of, I guess, 2023. But like, the market's been expanding, so they've been very lucky. If things were to turn south, this is where Lucid would get kind of in a very tough bind. And I did pick up 800 shares more, and like, even prior to me getting those extra 800 shares, because I did sell a put, so I've kind of told you that in the past, I instantly sold a covered call just to get some instant premium based on that, because given this data and everything, it does show more downside is coming. Tesla earnings as well, Rivian laying off, EVs are struggling. GM just had their earnings as well, and they're saying EV is just like it's cutthroat. It's very, very difficult. So in my opinion, I think just Lucid is stuck, very, very stuck, and they need to do something. And even looking at these questions from retail, I honestly have no faith in this. I know way back in the day, I used to kind of speculate, be like, hey, nobody can be this dumb. Nobody can be like, hey, this is a amazing question. This has to be the most voted question. Like, I thought that it was staged. I thought Lucid was just kind of planting their own employees and putting questions out there. But I don't know. Like, for instance, question number 1, what is the timeline of a affordable entry-level vehicle? Like, you're telling me that 509 votes works out to be 106,000 shares represented. This is what people's biggest concern is with Lucid. They've already been very open and telling us that it is going to be starting end of 2026, but in all fairness, kind of rolling over and really ramping up in 2027. No different than what they kind of mentioned for the Gravity. Exactly how the Gravity played out as well. So in reality, like, this is crazy that we're actually asking this. Any updates on the robotaxi partnership with Uber? They already said end of 2026 is when they will be starting to do all of that and to actually start fulfilling those orders. Until then, not really. That's between like Uber and more specifically Nuro. They're going to be the big player in all of that. And then Thomas, is Lucid going to come out with a affordable sedan to drive future growth? I don't know. They're just going to say the Pure. That's what they're gonna like. There's all the like, I don't know. It's just very, very frustrating. So you guys, like, this is where I am kind of stuck, because I feel like I want to be optimistic with Lucid. So at the end of the day, these questions are horrific, and maybe this is why Lucid isn't really kind of thriving, and why Mark wanted to really transition away from retail, because clearly retail can't think outside of a very simple box, and maybe why they want institutions. But lately, ever since the reverse stock split, institutions have not been buying. You can kind of see right here, these are all the transactions on the secondary market. Institutions were selling like crazy. So 9.1, 1.04, 1.01, all big sells. Everything with a bid right here was a sell. So most of the transactions today were not great. Even going over to shorts were able to return freely 2.9 million shares. And like I said, only about 7 million shares were traded. So they made up for a good chunk of the volume. They returned, but still Lucid closed in the red because institutions were selling. So again, I know I've mentioned this time and time again, but Mark needs to be fired, or whoever advised that Lucid do a reverse stock split needs to be fired. This was a flop, and probably this is going to go down under some like do not do type of CEO handbook type of thing. But cost to borrow average 10.8. 29.33% of the free floats being shorted, works out to be 37.2 million shares overall being shorted. So not all that great. When it comes down to Lucid for the options, we saw 1.3 million in calls, 3.7 in puts. 38% of all the options being done were bullish in nature, and most of that had to do with, looks like 19 to 1950 is anticipated going into this upcoming week. That's pretty much it. So a little bit of a recovery, not anything crazy if you ask me. Then these are all the transactions on the side note on the dark pool. So dark pool is often enough used by shorts and other hedge funds, but with it closing at 1848, it is trading between these 2 points. So this pivot in this S1. So 1765 is going to be that next strong support, and then 2119 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. Aside from that, on the actual chart, things aren't looking all too great. So this is where you are seeing more of that curse of the 50-day moving average really start to come to fruition. So of course, in case you are new to Lucid, that does mean typically like a 30 to kind of 20 to 30% pullback. So that would put it roughly around that $17 to $16 range for the most part. Nothing really new coming out for news. Looking at the market position for today, you see a little bit of willing buyers up until around that 1820, and then that is it. So if that does get a little bit of a push downward, then you could see Lucid really hit those kind of levels between that $17 and $16 range. So like I said, I think just Lucid is stuck. I really want to be optimistic with Lucid, but there's not really anything there. And I see a lot of people on social media really saying, hey, look, Lucid went up like crazy. They're going to just go skyrocket from here. Keep in mind, Lucid piggybacked off of the broader market while this was occurring for the most part. And during this wasn't institutions buying. This was algorithmic trading. And this is something that I did very much bring up during this time frame. I didn't complain because, of course, Lucid was going higher. But this does really prove how algos aren't all that great because it's rather hollow, both up and down. So at the end of the day, this is what really happened with Lucid. But I think Lucid really does have its work cut out for it. It needs to get their stuff and crap together ASAP. If not, things are going to get a little bit worse from here. So let me know your thoughts on Lucid. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. When it comes to these questions, was there any good ones that you guys were able to see, or are you as kind of pleasantly surprised as I am? Being sarcastic, of course. But hopefully everyone has an amazing weekend. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. I put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.